What can we do to start the new year right when it comes to observing nature? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods, talking about nature right outside your front door. Today, we would do a little bit of a challenge. We want to see what we can do to next year be a lens of nature to you for the rest of the year. This is a great time to start something new, to start something that we haven't done before. And most people, when they take a look at nature, they go for nature walks, they enjoy nature. They maybe will start off by trying to memorize facts and collect, different types of tidbits when it comes to nature. Or they won't do anything. They just look at nature as something that I go out hiking, I go out in nature, maybe you go out camping, that kind of thing. And there's no sort of thought between it. And I guess I wanted to challenge you about learning of how to make nature cumulative to yourself. One of the things that I've learned in my process of going through nature is that you build on it. You start out by going outside and there's a robin, there's a cardinal, there's a this, there's a that. Maybe you learn a bird here or there, or a tree, that's in your neighborhood. And it kind of goes a little bit haphazardly. And instead, you might be able to start things off differently in January that will help you change your whole year around. The idea is that you can get invested into something and really do a deep dive into it, and then expand your horizons when it comes to this. I started out with birding, and now, like I said, I did the same thing you did. I started out and there's a chickadee and there's a robin and there's some woodpeckers, but I started investing myself into looking at how I can learn them better, how I can learn their songs better, how can I identify them better, and even learning a little bit more about what their lives are like. Where do they live? Where do they mate? Why are some of them here some months and some of them not here other months? And so you can start going through and start learning a little bit more about them. That's when I started realizing that they come in different layers, that they can basically, as you start learning more and more about birds, you start learning more about birds, and you start getting better and better at identifying them and learning them. Some ways that I've done that is my friend and I created flip cards that are basically cards to challenge ourselves to do it. There's also something that Cornell offers that is a bird quiz that will help you identify birds better. I'll put a link in the show notes. But it'll teach you, and it's $60 a year to buy the paid subscription version of it. They have an unpaid version of it too. But that's one way that you could go and start doing a deeper dive. And the more you learn, and the more invested you get involved in it. Or maybe, trees are your thing, and you go and you there's a pine tree and there's a maple tree, and you start learning a little bit more about the buds and the bark and the timing of the leaves, and maybe even some of the critters like birds and insects that live inside of each of those particular types of trees. But maybe that's your thing. Maybe you are trying to learn where trees go, how they come to the edges of forests, and how they exist in your type of area. Sometimes I've had friends who are really invested in mosses. They really love mosses. But there's ways that you can start learning and identifying trees and getting better at that too. Maybe it is that you're interested in something that is like ponds and creeks, mud puddles. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about how water happens in our world. There are deep dives that you can do, all types of things. There's a fellow named Tristan Gooley. He's written a number of books. He also has an identification website that teaches you about how to identify paths and nature a little bit better. You'd get involved in it. He has a whole book about water and how the water is there. But maybe you really dig water and oceans and you want to learn more about that. That's something that you could go on and do. But the idea is that you can just start building one of these habits along the way. Find whatever it is that really sparks you. For me, I got really invested in weather, and so I started learning my clouds. I started learning angles of the sun. I started trying to figure out, can I predict my own weather? Just by looking at certain maps and charts, and I got pretty darn good at it. Maybe for you, stars are it, and you want to get yourself good binoculars. You don't have to, but you want to start identifying all the different constellations that you can see right outside your front door. You want to find Orion and Cassiopeia and all of those. This is not something about, you don't have to journal if you don't want to. You don't have to make checklists. You don't have to make it a big deal. But the idea is that you start noticing, you're just curious about it. You start maybe investigating web pages, videos, books about this particular topic. And eventually, at some point, you become pretty darn good at it. And you'll be able to be kind of an expert at a particular aspect of nature. But this thing is you have to sort of figure out what works for you. Once you get good at one thing, you will start to branch out and get better at other things. For me, I started out with weather. Then I started going hiking when I was a kid, and then I started learning more about birds and identifying them more. My friend Em, who I go hiking with, now she's into identifying not just wildflowers, but like all the different types of trees and plants that are out there available. There is a website out there called Seek, and it's built for kids, but it can be used by anyone. Will help you identify all the various different plants that you see around you. You can also seek bugs and insects. There's a fellow in my hometown who became the local bird expert. It was kind of funny. I was out in the middle of a woods once. It was just something really random, and this bird was singing. And I said to my friend Em, I said, man, if that guy would show up here, he would know exactly what that bird is. And guess who walked right out of the forest? But that guy. And I said, could you tell me what that bird is? And he did. Now he's into insects, and he's really into finding rare insects in my area. But again, once you get good at one thing, you start learning more and more, and then you'll be able to branch out into more and more and just understand the natural world around you. So I wanted to challenge you to think about what's the next thing that you could do, that you could pick up, that would be something that would focus you on nature, something that you could observe locally, maybe do a little research online, read some books about it. There's some really great books about almost any topic that you're looking at. This room is filled with a lot of those types of books, but I hope that helps. If you are interested in ornithology, allaboutbirds.org is a really great website, and eberg.org, which is Cornell's website. The Audubon Society has a lot of information as well. Or maybe it is that you're trying to learn more about trees, learn more about the trees around you. The U.S. Forest Service is out there. The Arbor Day Foundation is very useful. There's also something called the Missouri Botanical Gardens that has a plant finder, which I've used sometimes before. Very helpful in learning a little bit more about the world around you. Or if you're interested in weather, the National Weather Service, which is weather.gov, is fantastic. But there are a lot of other educational sites. There's something called the Cloud Appreciation Society.org that helps you identify various types of clouds that you might see around you. And again, a number of books that you might be interested in. If you're interested in watersheds and water, the USGS, that's the United States Geological Service, has a water science school that you can look at. And that'll talk about the different kinds of wetlands. The EPA also has a wetlands website, and the National Wildlife Federation has information about various types of land out there. If you're interested in astronomy, the night sky, amazing YouTube videos out there that will identify individual constellations. There's great apps out there, Stellarium, and oh gosh, let me take a look here. I got a bunch of them, but the one that is called Sky Tonight tells you what's going on in your very own sky where you are, and that'll help. Skyandtelescope.org, another great website. So a lot of resources out there, but I guess I would challenge you. Is there one thing that really just kind of gets your heart ticking and that you would love to learn a little bit more? Thanks so much. I appreciate you watching. I'd love to hear from you. Put something right here in the chat channel. I hope this inspires you to get outside and just start appreciating nature right outside your front door. Thanks so much and have a great year.